Hello, my name is Bill Webb, aka Billy Indiana. Today I'm going to talk to you about the board game Trekking the National Parks by Bink Inc. and Underdog Games. As you can see, it's a big, beautiful game. I'm going to give you an overview of how to play, walk through just a couple of rounds to let you feel the flow of the game, and then at the end tell you my final thoughts, how I would review this particular game. There's so much to show for this game and so many components, it takes up a lot of table space. So I've taken out the close-up video or the facial video for you for now, and just want to show you the beautiful board game box and some of the other things that come with the game. There is also the beautiful rules pamphlet, which is very nicely done, brief and to the point with lots of pictures and descriptions. There is also this pamphlet that describes the different national parks that aren't featured on the cards in the game, but that are on the board game represented by these little green diamonds, if you can see them here. All these little stones in the game come in this nice faux leather pouch. And then there's also this nice print that came with the game. Well, let's talk about what the components are. So as you can see, it's a very large game. There's a start circle where we begin with our campers or our trekkers or hikers. We've got stones in all of the different national parks. We've got 3 of these red major parks up here, and this is the deck of the rest of the red major parks. You don't actually use those, I'll explain that in a little bit, but I just had them out there so you can see the art. Up here we've got cards that we would use to do final scoring. Over here we've got cards that we use for movement and also for being able to purchase our access to the parks. We've got the regular national parks card deck with the 3 that are active right now, and then this is just a deck of these movement cards. And then this I've got set up down here for a 2-player turn. I'm going to modify a few things here and just create a little bit more space so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so I've just moved a couple of things around. I've taken out the extra red major park cards, and I've put the regular national park cards here just on the edge of the board and slid these up a little bit closer to the camera so you can see them. There's the red player and the green player. So let me talk to you specifically about what each of these pieces do. But first, I guess, let me tell you about the theme of this game. So in this game, you're actually trekking through the national parks across the United States. And I believe there are 45 national parks represented, and every park has its own national park card. Now, 6 of them have been declared as the major parks, and you choose 3 randomly from that deck of 6. And so here are our 3 for this game: Denali, Everglades, and the Hawaii volcanoes. The other 3 we just put back in the box. To move around this map, you use these cards with colors and numbers, and the colors give you one function of the game and the numbers give you another. And this is just the deck. It works a little bit like Ticket to Ride for those of you that have played that game. You always have an offer of 5 cards. Anytime you take one, you immediately replenish it. These are the other parks that are not considered major parks. You always have an offer of 3 showing, and then you have the rest of the deck here. Anytime you take one of these parks, just like the trekking cards or the movement cards, you also immediately replace it with one of these. To start the game, each player has 3 tents, which you can only place on these major parks up top. You have a player aid, which gives you the flow of the game and tells you the turn steps. And then you each get 2 of these step cards, these colored step cards, randomly drawn. And so player 1 and player 2 each have 2 cards to start. And then we have this nice bear token to indicate who the first player is. All right, so let me talk to you about how you play the game step by step, and then we'll talk about final scoring at the end. As you move around the board, anytime you land in one of the parks, you will pick up the stone and keep that stone in your collection. Let me show you the player aid so you can see the details of a step in this game. This shows you the options in your player turn, and as you can see, there are always 2 actions that you will take. You can take any one of these 4 actions twice or any 2 of them once each. So one option is to draw a trek card, those cards that are both colors and numbers. Another is to move across the board. So you just take your hiker and move them the number that is shown on the cards that you discard, and you can discard any number of the cards to move as far or as little as you want. You can claim a park card, and those are the ones that don't have the red border. And then you can also occupy a major park. Those are the ones that do have the red border, which I showed you across the top of the board for our setup. Now, the goal of the game is to have the most points, victory points, and you earn points 4 ways. One way is by if you plant a tent in any of these 3 major parks, you would earn the points indicated in the arrowheads here. They are each worth 5. A second way is to collect these national park cards, and they all have an arrowhead on them. The 3 that I've turned over happen to all have a 5 right now, but they range, I believe, anywhere from 5 to 10 points. The third way is by collecting these stones as you move around the track or around the country. As you stop in any one location, you take the stone in the location where you stopped. And the last way is by collecting the most stones of any one color. These cards up here are to help us to see the value. If you collect the most yellow stones, it's worth 7 victory points. Red is 6, black is 5, green is 4, and blue is 3. Now underneath, I also have the second most yellow stone, green stone, red stone cards to show you how many points you get if you are the second most. I'm showing a 2-player game today, and in a 2-player game, you only worry about the most stones of any one color. So those are the 4 things you can earn points for at the end of the game. As we saw, the steps that you can take are to draw a trek card. So I'm going to play a couple of turns here just to help you see the flow of the game. And so here is my hand right now. I've got a 3 yellow and a 4 yellow, and I am the red player. So I have a couple of options. I could draw more of these cards from the offer if I'm looking for a particular goal in mind. I could go ahead and use these to move across the terrain. I could not claim a park or occupy a major park yet because I'm not in any of those locations. You have to be in a location to either claim the park card, one of these, or occupy, place a tent in one of the major parks. So as I look at the major parks, Hawaii is clear over here, Everglades clear down here, and Denali way over here. I'm probably not going to be able to get to those in just one turn. And to park my tent in Denali, I would need 2 purple cards, and I only have 2 yellow. To park in the Everglades, I need 2 blue, and to park in Hawaii, I need 2 of the yellow campfires. Now, I do have that, but if I use these 2 cards to move to Hawaii, then I wouldn't have them to be able to set up my tent there to pay my fees. So early in the game, probably what we'll normally do is figure out where you want to go and choose a couple more cards. So you have them both to move and to pick up or put your tent in these parks. So the first park that's in the offer right now is Redwood in California. You can see it's worth 5 victory points if you're able to claim it. And you would need a yellow campfire and a green tree in order to claim it. You also have to be there. The second park that is currently out in the offer is Pinnacles, also happens to be in California, also worth 5 points. You need a bear claw brown card and a red boot card to be able to claim that park. And the third card is the Petrified Forest card in Arizona. You would need a green tree and a red boot to claim that one. You can see it's also worth 5 victory points. So knowing what I need to earn the option to claim one of these parks and knowing what I need to plant my tent and occupy one of these other major parks, I now can decide, okay, well, which colors of these should I need? Or maybe which numbers do I want to pick if I want to maximize my movement? And so I think I would choose to try to get to this Petrified Forest. It's not too far away. I could get there in 3. And the Petrified Forest needs a green and a red. So I would take the green card and immediately reveal another one. And I don't see a red one there yet. So I think I'll go ahead and use my 3 yellow, and I'm going to discard that and move 3 spaces. So I would move 1, 2, 3. I'm actually in the Petrified Forest. Now I would claim that stone and put it in my collection. That's my 2 steps, because if you recall from the turn order, we can take any 2 of these actions, either 2 separate ones or one of them twice. So that would be the end of my turn. And now player 2 looks to see what they have. They have purple and yellow. So if they look at the cards up here, well, they need 2 purple to visit Denali. They need 2 yellow to visit Hawaii. There are no purple out here on any of these 3 cards, but there is a yellow at Redwood. Now they could try to compete with me to get to the Petrified Forest, or they might choose to just go to a different location to avoid that competition. And so let's say for this game, they're not feeling too competitive in that regard. And so they think, well, I'm going to work my way towards Denali to see if I can earn this bonus. And one of the advantages of getting a tent parked in these is not just the 5 victory points, but each one of those cards actually also gives you a play bonus. So let me show you again on the card, the player aid card on the back, it tells you what those bonuses are. So I'll focus first on the 3 that we're playing right now. If you have a tent put in the Denali Park, you can see that you would immediately draw 2 cards off the top of the deck. So you'd only do that one time when you put your tent there. Everglades is our second one, and you can see in the Everglades you would swap 1 stone with another from one other player. So if you see that they're starting to pass you up in the maximum number or most of those colored stones, you might want to swap one with them. And then the third one we're playing with right now is the Hawaiian volcanoes. You can claim a park and then move 1 more anytime you do claim a park. So the Denali bonus would just happen immediately, the Everglades bonus would just happen immediately, but the Hawaiian volcano islands would happen every time you claim one of the parks. So that's why you may want to go and plant your tent in one of those parks. So let's say the second player decides they're going to move themselves towards Denali to see if they can get some of these extra cards in their hand eventually. And so they're just going to go ahead and take the other purple right now so that they've got those 2 purples and then see what turns over. They're going to have to move quite a far distance to get there, and maybe they'll try to stop at the redwood on the way. And so in the redwood park they need a green and a yellow, and they already have a yellow, so maybe they'll pick the 4 to give them maximum movement, and that would be the end of their turn. Now it's back to my turn, and I'm in Petrified Forest already. Oh, forgot to refresh this. And remember, the Petrified Forest needs a green and a red. There are still no red out there, so having the green doesn't help me too much yet. So I'm going to just take one. Oh, I got really lucky and got a red one. So my first turn was to draw one off the top instead of from the offer. That is one of the options when you're drawing a card. So that's the first action in my turn. And now I do have the green and the red. So I will discard the green and the red to claim the Petrified Forest. And now I have that card, and I will have those 5 victory points at the end of the game. Since I've claimed one, we turn over another one, which reveals Joshua Tree, which is right here. And we also need a green and a red for that one. But that was my 2 actions, so I would be done. All right, let's say the second player here, still thinking they might want to try to get to Denali. They have the 2 purple to get there, and then maybe visiting Redwood on the way, needing a green and a yellow. There is a green one there now, so they'll take the green one. Now they've got what they need for Redwood, and they've got what they need for Denali. And so they'll just start trekking across the landscape. So maybe they would go 1, 2, 3, 4 to Lawson Volcanic and discard their card. So they drew a card for their first action and then moved for their second action, and they would claim that stone. And that is the end of their turn. We'll just do a couple more hands. I'm here in the Petrified Forest, and I'm really close to Joshua Tree, and it needs green and red. Oh, forgot to replenish this again. I don't see any green and red out there yet, so I might want to consider going over to the Hawaiian volcanoes to see if I can gain this bonus instead. And so I would need to go 1 and 2, so a 2 card will get me there. And one thing about movement, when you discard cards to move, you can discard as many of them as you want, but you have to discard the number exactly equal to the distance you're moving. So I couldn't use this 4 card to go 2 spaces. I would need a 2 card. We interrupt this broadcast to bring you an important message. There are 3 important things to remember that restrict your movement when using a move action. First, you can't retrace over any track or through any park that you've already passed through on that single move action. Second, if there's another trekker in the park you would like to pass through, you may not. You must go around. And last, if you decide to end your move on a park where there's already another trekker, you may do that, and that trekker has to move back to the start position. Now we return you to your regularly scheduled broadcast. So I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and pick another yellow, because to put my tent in Hawaii, I need 2 yellow cards. And I'm going to take this blue 3, a blue 2, because that gives me the 2 movement that I'll need to get there. And drawing 2 cards would be my 2 actions, and I would be done. Now we have back to the second player's turn, and they are here in Lawson Volcanic. They've got what they need for both Redwood and for Denali, but they don't have any extra cards to move there. And so they need a 1 to get to Redwood and then a 2 to get to Denali. There is a 1 out here, so maybe they would take this green 1, which gives them what they need to move. And then maybe instead of drawing another card, since there isn't a 2 right now, they would just go ahead and move with that 1 that they just drew and claim that green stone. And that is the end of their turn. So just a couple more turns to wrap it up so you can see when we get to one of these big parks. So now it's back to my turn, and I have the 2 so that I can go 1, 2 to the Hawaiian volcanic islands. I claim the stone, and that is my first action. For my second action, I'll discard the 2 yellow that I have in my hand, and I will put one of my tents in the Hawaii volcanoes. And that means that I will have 5 victory points at the end of the game, but also anytime I claim a park, I will get to move 1 extra space after I've claimed that park, which is kind of nice because you arrive at the park, you get the stone, you claim the park, and then you just get to move 1 more space, which might allow you to claim another stone. So that is the flow of the game, the different features of the game, how you use the numbered and colored cards here, how you claim the parks here, how you visit and put your tents in these parks and the special features and actions that those grant you. And hopefully that helps you understand the flow of the game. Now let's talk about what do I think of this game, my final thoughts. Well, trekking the national parks is really an enjoyable game. As you can tell, it's beautiful. It's really simple to learn. It doesn't take very long to teach other players how to play. And it has enough mechanisms that it also keeps pretty interesting for those that like deeper games. It is definitely not a heavier game, it's a lighter game. But there's enough different mechanisms that you can score a lot of different ways. You can try to maximize how you're earning those victory points. And as my wife and I have played, we've both discovered different ways that you can maximize those points, although my wife always wins. But sometimes she's won by having these stones collected and gaining those most stones cards at the end of the game. Sometimes she has won by gaining more cards. And unfortunately, I'm yet to win this game, but I still enjoy it. There are some features that are kind of like Ticket to Ride, like how the offers are used and you draw a card and replace it, and how you're trying to collect sets. But you're collecting sets in a different way. You're collecting sets for numbers to help you move a particular space or to a particular space, and you're collecting them by color, but not in same colors necessarily, but in the colors that are given on those cards. So there's some similarities and some differences, but it definitely harkens to that Ticket to Ride feel, both in how you play it and also in the complexity. I think if people like Ticket to Ride, even though this is fairly significantly different, they would still really enjoy this game. And if the complexity of Ticket to Ride is in your wheelhouse, this is about that same level of complexity in my opinion. So we really did like this game. I'm sure we'll get quite a few plays out of it. I would rank this one a 7 out of 10. We typically like games that are maybe a little bit more action-packed, but we really love the art and we love national parks. So I know that's going to continue to draw us back. And it's pretty quick. We can play a game in about 30 minutes. We haven't played it with more than 2 players yet, so it'll be interesting to see. I think it would actually be a little bit more interesting with 3 and 4 players. I did forget to mention that the 2 ways you end the game, one is if you clear all the stones off the table. So with 2 players, that's not going to happen probably. The second way is 1 player has earned 5 of these parks, not including the major parks, but they've claimed 5 of these parks. And you always end up having each player with the same number of turns. So if I was the first player and I claimed the 5th park, the second player would still get their turn. So I'm sorry I forgot to mention that earlier, but that's how you know when the game is ending. And again, just to review the scoring I mentioned earlier, at the end of the game, you would look at the victory points that are on the bottom of the cards and these arrowheads that you've claimed. You would look at the victory points in these arrowheads for any of the parks that you've put your tent in. You would count up how many stones, and each stone is worth 1 point. And then you would also see who has the most of each color of stone and award the points as is indicated on those cards I showed you earlier. And you just add up all those points and whoever has the most wins. So I think it's a great little game, pretty quick, easy to learn, and it'll get quite a bit of play here at the Webb household. Well, thank you for watching this video. I hope it's been helpful. If it has, please click the like and subscribe below. You may want to click on that bell icon if you would like to get notifications of future videos that I put out. If you have a comment, maybe something you liked about the game, maybe something that I missed in the rules, or a question that you have, please post those below as well. As always, thanks for watching. This is Billy, Indiana, signing off.